Hey guys, Taylor here. As always, this is not financial advice. I just wanted to do a 1 year recap on my experience with the NEOS NASDAQ 100 covered call ETF as I purchased my shares in February of last year. So I'm right at the 14-month mark, and the results are actually fairly surprising. So if you don't know what QQQI or the NEOS NASDAQ covered call fund is, um, it is essentially a covered call overlay on the NASDAQ index from the NEOS fund. It has about a 14% yield, plus or minus a couple of quarter percents, depending on when you look at the yield. I think I had a 14.1% yield at the time that I purchased the bulk of my shares in February of last year. So I'm actually pleasantly surprised. I wanted to buy this and have around $225 worth of dividends, essentially, just to pay my telephone bill. I wanted to do an experiment to see if this was maybe a viable strategy in early retirement, as the distributions are a return of capital, and I did get, the vast majority, at least 90% of my dividends were return of capital. I'd have to look into and see the exact number, but I was not hit with any surprise taxes this tax season. I wanted to wait until after tax season before putting this video out, because a lot of people had questions online about the return of capital, and I'm not sure the exact amount, but it was definitely in the upper 90s% that was return of capital. So in total, the purchased shares were 18,528. I received $3,229 in dividends, and my current balance is right at 21,751. So the funny thing is, if you subtract those two numbers, my capital is exactly, plus or minus a couple $100 of right where I started. So I did not have any decay in my capital, which is great. So I could have essentially just taken all of these dividends. I didn't. I reinvested them all. But had I, taken them out, would have the exact same amount that I started with, since I did reinvest those dividends. I do have more shares, and my dividend yield, um, while it's still the same, my yield on cost has been going up, and I'm pleasantly surprised by the results. I'm considering early retirement, and QQQI was one that I'd had on my radar. I had dabbled in some of the older Misty funds, some of the Tesla. I bought a little bit of that just kind of as an experiment a few years ago, when they were kind of all the craze, and they really didn't pan out. But I do know in Canada, um, I've been following Passive Income Investing, I believe is the YouTube channel. And some of the Canadian covered call funds have a little bit of a, what's the word I'm looking for? I'm absolutely blanking. A little bit of leverage in the funds, and they've done, surprisingly well with around 25% leverage. I know that NEOS came out with a QQQ fund with, I believe, up to 50% leverage. I haven't bought into those. I'm not sure if they would be the golden ticket, although I'm not sure that you need to really layer on that much risk. I would say that for a while, QQQI was actually down quite a bit from where I purchased my shares. It's at the time of recording $53.96. Um, that's kind of right around where I bought the majority of my shares. The stock market is at an all-time high as of the time of recording, which is absolutely phenomenal. I do think, with everything happening since I bought these shares, we had the Liberation Day drop, and then we had the most recent stock drop. While those were a little scary, QQQI has bounced back a little bit slower than if I had just owned the Qs or the Vanguard Information Technology Fund, but it has bounced back very, very well. So I do think they're doing a good job with the covered calls. So I just wanted to give you guys this little update. So if you have any questions or anything like that, drop them in the comments. Obviously, this is not financial advice. This fund could be mismanaged and explode tomorrow and go to zero. I really don't think it will. I may double down and buy some more. If I do, I'll definitely keep you guys posted. Otherwise, have a great Friday night and take care.